welcome to Junior, a Senior, and I. I'm super excited about this episode. It's a subject that is very close to my heart, and I could not be happier than sharing it with today's guests. Martin on one hand, and on the other, Georges. Uh, Please, Martin, could you introduce yourself in 3 sentences or less?
Yes, that's one. That's two. No, so I'm Martin, 7. I found that I've been doing everything you can do in a software development team, but mostly software development, and leading those days. I'm really firmly back in the technical side, working generally as a freelance for impact-driven small companies.
Cool. Thank you. And what about you, Georges?
First of all, I missed the. I think we're gonna start now, but signature sentence from your podcast. I've heard a long time. So I'm George, long time listener. I'm super happy to be here, and I've been a software developer for 6, 7 years now. Now working in the startup, called Nodal View, and I'm doing full stack. That's it. Brussels based.
Cool. Thank you. I'm gonna pretend that you both did three sentences. Uh, as I said privately to both of you, it wasn't a hard rule.
A lot of commas.
A lot of commas, true. Exactly. As long as you put commas, the sentences can be as long as you want. Uh, what does agile evoke for you guys? Let's start with George.
So I went on the wiki pages just like 20 minutes before we started. So yeah, I've read it's just like I think I must have read the manifesto 2 or 3 times like by now, but it's just like it always feels like this theory or principles of modern software development, and it's just like I don't know. So that's what it feels. But at the same time, it feels for me that that's the water I swim in. Like I've never known anything else than what the principals more or less want to go. I just hope to go through.
Okay,
Does that make
gotcha.
sense?
What about you, Martin?
Complicated, but I think that at first, George, all environment I've been here say that they are agile. Now, in my experience, the distance between that and the manifesto tend to be pretty huge. Like there is no company today advertising not being agile. No one is proud to do waterfall. Like the last and only time I think I saw someone say that was a blog post from Joel Spolsky saying he was doing big design upfront and he was very proud of it. But like
Mhm.
it's extremely unusual and it was for a short conduct, so like it has a lot of context. Spolsky being Spolsky. Um, and so now what is evolved for me generally, I think a couple of things that I think the Agilist got right. Small autonomous team, generally multidisciplinary. Uh, people, including customer, that is saying a software project mostly as a group game than anything else. So it's not an individual rule, it's not a technical one. And then the last part, which has become weird, is that it's a word I've been now more and more used to not use at all due to the view it has received, which means it's not something I will put on my LinkedIn.
Okay,
Because according to me, do that those. Yeah.
okay.
Like the only other word I have with that is architect.
Mm. I gotcha. And George, I feel like your answer was still a bit different in the sense that the what you're saying is not everyone told me I was being agile. It was more I've always been in an agile environment. Did I understand that correctly?
So in the sense that I've never been in a waterfall
Okay.
environment, but like Martin says, it's just I don't know, but I'm not even sure that the people who wrote the manifesto uh, know what is the perfect agile environment, so just working condition and everything. Because yeah, it has to vary depending on the projects and stuff, and they all have their own methodologies and everything. So
According to me, that's the point of the writing. That's why it's a manifesto. It's not a procedure. Like Scrum is a
It's a
procedure.
process.
But,
Yeah.
the whole, I think that was the point they didn't way. That's part of why I say I'm not sure I can use the word anymore because that one has been lost.
Yeah.
I feel.
No, no, I agree, and it leads me to one subject I wanted to treat today. That what you said, right? Scrum is a process. The Agile Manifesto is a manifesto. Do you think that when you codify what Agile should be, you miss or lose a lot of its meaning?
Not if you do it iteratively with the stakeholders.
Yes, but then it's not codified, right?
It's just, well, like software development, it's codified but open to change. I'm
True.
just using the word of agile for building up an agile process. So they're just like going meta here. So, but yeah, I don't know if about codification. No, just like, yeah. When just like, so when there are processes, I'm always, that's just, I'm always in favor of changing the process to the better suited process. And there is no perfect processes for that works, even for one team. Depends on projects. I don't,
I
please, Martin,
I do agree
just
with you,
correct me.
but the promise of things like Scrum, Safe, etc., is if you do that, not only you will be agile, you will be awesome, and you will work the best you've ever worked, right? So those frameworks are trying to codify what agile means between brackets, between quotes. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Like, and it's a bit worse than just codifying. They're selling it.
Mm,
Like, you have those own ID certified, Scrum, whatever. And there is two view of that. The bad one, which is by codifying it, you made it pretty much useless and you made it counter the whole premise, which is find something that works with your team, like give a very general canvas that help your team deliver faster, and find your own way of what deliver faster means, which
mm.
I think is the manifesto side. And so that's bad in my book, saying do it that way. Yeah, but that's exactly the contrary of what the manifesto was about. The good side is the good side. The necessary side, I'm an economist, so I tend to be very much in geopolitics a lot of time. That's what made it possible for big companies to adopt. And so the good
Mm.
side is that we got some agilism in big companies, not the kind I'd like, but it's probably better than what it used to be before, at the cost of evaporating a lot of what agile is about, because it's the part that companies will never accept, which is autonomous teams. And I think the
That's
Scrum
interesting.
people, I don't know how intentional it was, they made the only version of agile that could be accepted at insert name of a large financial institution in Belgium.
Because they were selling it. And just so big companies do not trust free stuff.
No, you also be time. Because
And
in
free.
theory, if you apply agile in your company of 12 or 20 different individual development teams, that means they could have 20 different processes. That's not impossible to manage for a company that size, but it's impossible to accept.
Mm.
It's not that it couldn't work. It's just that it goes against the institution. Where Scrum is not
Doesn't,
going against the institution,
yeah.
I feel.
I'm wondering if agile doesn't just is it a privilege of software development?
What do
Like
you mean?
can can an architect be agile and just go iteratively every week building part of the plan one room at a time and just go and change the room or the thing? Can just really an accountant go every 2 weeks just send the papers? I'm just thinking out loud here that the just
I,
is that why agile was difficult to adopt and is still difficult to adopt? Is it?
in my
I don't.
opinion, sorry, Martin, I will let you give the correct answer afterwards, but let me go first. Um, in my opinion, the agile is suited to a kind of problem. So for me, it's not exclusive of software development, but The analogy that is usually drawn between architects or house builders and software development is, in my mind, a bit iffy in the sense that it's not the same work. Building a house is usually a solved problem, and so you have a plan that you will do. In most cases, in most houses, if you're building an opera house, it might be different, but it's a known quantity, right? And even then, you will have delays. Whereas in software development, you're rarely doing a thing enough times to know how it will be done or how it should be done. Even in even if you're doing a similar task, the context might be so different because legacy code, etc., etc. I think that in creative tasks, which software development ends up being mostly, you can apply agile, and you see that with people that are doing design or with people that are writing a book or stuff like that, where they will have shorter bursts and will come back and forth between what they were doing before and what they are doing now. So I in the TLDR version of this is no, I don't think it's exclusive to software development, but I do think it is exclusive to some problem domains.
I think it's adequate to some domain. So the counter example is why not the accounting? Because that's an operational process. And you don't win anything by being agile in an operational process. Because for me, agile depends on it's a group activity. I think it's quite important. It can be delivered in phase. That's quite difficult to do with a house because it's not only delivered, it needs to be used in some way. Because if it's not used, you don't get the feedback and then you're just doing phase. And it's not agile anymore. You can do phase with waterfall, it's not an issue. And also, it's only meaningful in an area where you have a lot of unknowns. If everything is known, being capable of iterating and evolving doesn't make much sense because you can have the whole plan from start. So if you are operating in a very, very well-defined environment, there is no point. Why not following a plan? It looks like a better idea. We're not changing every time. The change is for me in theory motivated because we learned something since last time. And so for this, I think accounting no, because it's operational. House building no, because you cannot build a room, tell people to live in it, give you feedback and build a server after. That creates a lot of issue. Like if I try to push it there. But again, a lot of things are needing project related, business dev, marketing, graphical, whatever. All of that, I think it could. And I think most of them are, not because it's a giant, just because, well, they were operating since
Mm.
that long before the world was going, most probably. And I do the fact that now everyone, it works so well for us, everyone wants to put Scrum into everywhere. Like my public servant friends have agile trainings. Well, not agile trainings, Scrum trainings, that's the issue again.
Do you think that that idea of putting Scrum everywhere might be partly due because the software development is the most expensive? So if we adapt how they work, then the rest of the company we adapt as well to fit with our most expensive department.
Never thought of that one, to be honest.
Okay, moving on. I think this question was
I think it has become very good at selling itself, including the sample. The part where I think again the agilists get it right is in a way, according to me, agile is a huge recognition that we are doing it wrong. That may be weird as a positive, but meaning it's admitting together that we don't have a clear plan, that we don't have the exact view, and we don't know the best way to do it, which means we need to learn by doing that. And that's required a weird thing that we normally don't have in software engineering, which is called humility. But in that side, I think that that's a very valid point. Saying, you know what, we will learn by doing it, and we still have a lot of things to learn because whatever we are doing is not a known territory. And that's for pretty much everything in what they call knowledge economy. Anyone that works with their brain fall pretty much there because if it was explicit, then it would be at best a procedure or at best a software already. If it was really about repeating that. No, wait, it's operational because it needs hands, or it doesn't need hands and then it has been replaced by a small Python script already. So, like, probably. So yeah, I think there is something interesting there about I don't know if you have that. I have in several teams, which were not software development teams, where you realize that the way they operate is no more put in question. I think that's bad. You should
I
put in
didn't catch
question
that.
the way you operate. Sorry?
Oh yeah, okay. I
So,
didn't
so
catch
it's like
the conclusion, but okay.
that part is really interesting.
Mm. Uh, how often are the practices you do at the different work experiences you've had being questioned, George, for example?
Often the practice of development has been questioned in different places at work.
Yeah, the practices of how you write software or how your team functions, right?
So as a team, I feel like agile is more about the team function than how the software is written in a way. Or just
Okay.
because yeah, yeah. And the so I've had varying things. The last place I worked at was just like was really good. Like we had weekly team meetings where we would have retrospectives of the team and it's just like on the project team, and we would bring any type of team related issues about communication, about code reviews, so anything that involved the team there, and we would work. We would put action plans for the coming weeks to work on whatever issue we could have changed, or just say, "Hey, we need to keep on doing this because this worked." That was that
Hmm.
was that was that was great, and that in this retrospective we could even discuss about how the retrospective itself would work, which is just meta working on processes and on the team's work and communication, which I highly appreciated. And yeah,
Hmm.
that was a dream. Otherwise, for the rest, there's never been a process to evaluate and think about and reflect on how we work as a team.
Okay. And even outside of having a process, uh, was the way you work evolving? Because the way you work might evolve, quote unquote, outside of a process, right? Someone brings up an issue, we solve the issue, we change the way we work, and we don't need to do a retrospective, or we don't need to have a formal way of changing, right? Or that didn't really happen either.
So you can bring an issue and not change the way we work. Is that the question?
uh, no, on the contrary, like, to change the way we work, we don't need it to be in a formal retrospective. It can be just someone brings up an issue, I don't know, like, hey, PRs are taking too long to being merged, what can we do about it? And it doesn't have to be in a formal meeting, right? Did that happen often in your experiences?
Yeah. Yeah. It would happen, but having a process for it gives it a forum, a place where you know that you've heard. Because otherwise, I just have seen it both ways. That yeah, we do listen because it's the boss who wrote that on Slack, and it's just like now we're all gonna review more than we could, or it's just the new guy who just said something and no one replied and he's okay
Hmm,
with it. That's where I did like appreciate the process where you know that you're heard and you do have your agora.
gotcha. And for you, Martin, in your experience, because from what I'm hearing from George is that those places where the way of working changes, quote unquote, regularly are rare-ish. Do you have the same experience on your end?
It depends a lot. In small environment, I think we go toward pretty much what you say is that we do formal retrospective or not, but the fact is we're updating along the way. And that goes with, I would say, the smaller and the more senior the team, the more we go on with the ceremonials, because we don't
Mm,
need them, and it goes that way. The bigger, the more junior the team, the more it's actually good to go in the ceremonial, notably because it ensures a better chance that everyone is heard. It's never perfect,
mm,
but the play with the positive message implies that the shy person in the team will still have a shot at it, whether this is something the person like or not, it depends. Some people just like not participating in kind
mhm.
of stuff, but at minimum you get something. And it's good because it gives you some opinion from the silent part. Because on a team of eight, generally speaking, you have one guy like me, 70% of the voice time, then someone with 20, and then the rest of the team. So, no, I mean, it's very difficult for the same issue and same people to not speak in time if you don't have something formal. And there, a lot of the retrospective canvas works well because they
Mm.
go against this kind of who's speaking the loudest. So now in bigger institution, it's generally about how much autonomy the team actually had. And one of the things that make it not work is that putting an agile process where you realize that 80% of the issue raised by the team are outside the team control is actually an exercise in frustration. It's pushing on people's head. You may have an idea to work better, and it may even be good, but there is no world in which you'll be able to apply that. And it's something like device or something like how do you function, and also how do you cope with in work environment where the workplace itself is acting very actively against you producing results for them. And that exists. It's not, unfortunately, it's not making something like a sarcastic out of the joy of making puns. It happens a lot.
Is is the corollary of what you're saying that agile cannot work in big companies unless the company itself is agile?
That at least, generally speaking, I think those Scrum vendors should have an honest discussion before starting to train team at the bottom level about it, with the management or management saying how much leeway do you want those guys to have, and if the
Mm.
management say they can pick the color of the like of the back of the screen or something like that, but anything else we don't want that, then maybe the correct opinion would be then we are not going to give pay, you're not going to pay us, and at least no one is hurt. It's not the way it happens because those guys want to eat. But maybe they believe that it's a good way to start. I don't know. But it's really about, yeah, do you want to provide autonomy in the team? And my feeling is that the honest answer by most management is no.
Mm.
It's more complicated. How do you suddenly all your nice KPI and metrics and so are complicated? You have 17 each operating in different ways, even if they're delivering actually more.
Mm.
You're going against the institution and in a quite severe way. Also, by the way, if the team is self-organizing, what's my job as the manager? How do I justify my existence?
Sure.
Well, there are not a very good answer to that one, but the fact is people are not prepared in big companies to think about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's what I was gonna say. That there is not an obvious answer, but there are that role of someone, quote unquote, outside the team that can open barriers does have a space, being it agile or not, right?
The thing is, it changed a lot what it used to be.
Yeah, sure.
And again, if that level is not ready, willing, and able to move from you do this, to something much more complicated than managing a pool of humans,
Hmm.
I don't see that being an open door a lot. Still now, we speak agile in the company speaking agile on the floor every day. It's still very old school management.
Sure.
Um, just the junior speaker world is just like, isn't there an interest as well in companies in standardizing a lot of their software development so software developers can jump from projects to projects? It's just is maybe giving too much autonomy to teams, creating too much varieties in ways that are working, and so it's difficult to switch teams and projects.
I think the standard process is more an illusion of similarity. What you say that would be needed is that, yeah, if you have 14 contributing modules in the same company, of course, I need to align the basic stuff. I'm actually in a small startup right now, and we have three different programs, completely separated. We should still discuss about our next technological choice because the company as itself is going to be hard if we don't. So I don't think that autonomous team means they cannot work with each other. Uh, like it doesn't prevent that, and I think you can and you should have standardization on a technical level. But again, if those 14 need to agree, maybe they send a representative, and this sort of committee can work in an agile way anyway. also. It's still self-organizing. So
Mm.
I don't think it prevents that. Uh, it's again putting the decision at the level of the people doing so. That may be something I like with the idea of agile. Also, I don't know if it's directly in the manifesto, it's my own take on it. It's a form of people that are going to work on something have the right to an opinion. The other, please shut up.
Yeah, it's how I understand also the part about people over process, right? Like some process must exist, but at the end of the day, the people that are working are the important cogs in the machine and should have a say or shape the processes that they do use.
Apply to them forcibly. I like that. That's something I like. I think with the idea of the retrospective is that it's something it allows us to remove a part of the conversation, which was between retrospective, we don't challenge the process every day because like we need them to work
Mm.
and execute. And at least we have a dedicated place, which means you can be decided and then we should put as many go as we can at that time. And in the meantime, while we shut up and deliver, except if there is something huge. But that's cool also because you have people with a lot of idea about to improve the process, and that's good. But at some point, it becomes unmanageable.
Mm.
Like we cannot speak about the way we work every day. We need to spend 80, 90% of our time actually doing the work.
Why must you remove the fun from everything, Martin?
I think working is fun.
Uh, yeah, but discussing about how to work is funner. Uh, for me at least. Um,
No, you made a
are
podcast out
there
of it.
true? Are there practices that for you are fundamental uh, if a team is to become agile? I'm thinking of practices like I don't know a stand up or trunk based development or pairing or mobbing or retrospectives. Is there a practice where without it you cannot be agile? In your opinions,
I
George?
feel like there are breaks. There are some things that make you slower in your capacity of delivering quickly and iteratively. Like just not having not having the stakeholder being capable of communicating with a stakeholder uh, quickly or just frequently is is going to be a blocker. And it's just that's where communication wise it's important, and it's just yeah, it is based on this idea that we don't have all the answers, and so we do need to discuss with the stakeholders answers to questions that come while you develop. Um, otherwise, otherwise, I have no other opinion than that. That's the one that I'm just, yeah, I'm like,
I've read of
I can go ahead.
I've read of people that I think it was Alan Holub uh, that their point of view in that is that actually stakeholders should not have input on how on the work produced up front, but rather by having small experiments that you actually put in their hands, they will give you the feedback, right? So that that access might not be that necessary between brackets in the day to day if they are able to test the software afterwards. Um,
Yeah,
Not on that. For me, one of the big thing I'm really keen about is regular, incremental development, regular deployment, the world that you want. It's that you get actual outcome on a regular basis, regular being in my environment between days and a short amount of weeks, ideally days. Like why? Because if you work in a team of 3 to 5, there's no reason you cannot get a feature every 3 days for each other. Like it may be a small one, but it should be there. I agree with the stakeholder communication one way or another because in a way you're just discussing different ways of getting it. That means at least we get it. Like that
mm,
it shouldn't be too far removed from. That's probably the thing that I like the chance to be sure that we have that between the CEO that maybe is driving the thing and the customer and in the middle of development team somewhere in the middle, this thing could go relatively fast. It shouldn't be like you shouldn't need to manage the intermediaries because you're diluting the message a lot.
mm,
The last part for me is feedback, and that's according to me the one I've seen most agile process fail. In theory, the whole idea about putting incremental development is that you learn something from it, which is helping your next move. That's the part I've seen failing, I think, 8% of the time. What are we actually learning? Are we measuring something? Are we talking with the customer? We have all those nice shiny tools like A/B testing, and so that works if you have thousands of customers using a form A or form
mm,
B. Most of us, at least in my environment, are not operating at that level. So we have things about is that working? Define working. It's vibes because it's about is this helping the customer more? This being said, despite not having that kind of formal feedback I'd like to have, and those processes tend to be fuzzy, and even when it's complicated, it could still be done, and generally it isn't. I think that the discussion that are based on software that evolve every 2 weeks, even if they are vibe based, are still better than the one you will have discussing about specification. So even in the absence of the formal cycle feedback I love to have, and I generally don't, because reasons. Um, it's still better because you
mm,
see better conversation about actual software than you see conversation about possible software. The content just seems to be better to me and accessible to a lot of people. A lot of everyone can contribute about the working software, about the conversation. I mean. So I still think that value, even if generally one of the key elements is missing, both environment. I mean.
mm. I
Maybe
see.
that idea of just like of the goal, like of establishing the definition of working software. Like that could go in the yeah, that should be the conversation about what is a deliverable and how do we measure it's been delivered. And that might be missing sometimes.
I feel like that sometimes becomes a kind of a philosophical question, in the sense that what is a deliverable can go from something super specified, like, okay, it will have this color and it will have this test and the documentation will be written and etc. Like, some people use the definition of done in that sense, and some people go to the whole other extreme and will say something like it's in production, right? And
It's two different things. The one is about specification, how much precise the one you want to be. But then about what's in production is in production. Whether it's according to the spec or not is a totally different question. And at least by being in production, it moves the conversation forward. Even if the conversation is about, hey, Pablo, that wasn't what I asked for. That's one of the main feedback I'm looking for when I'm deploying.
yeah, yeah,
Someone saying me, not at all. No, at least we're learning. Right? And if it was a 2 day stuff, then it's good. Like, yeah, okay, it's unfortunate we have to throw those 2 days by the window, but we generally learn more better 2 days than 3 months. So it's the same game. Like,
mm,
so I think that actually you frame it yourself. If it's in production, it's a deliverable. Yeah, I know it looks a bit stupid saying so, but that means if we're bringing things to production on a more regular basis, we're probably good.
mm,
And if those things can frame a conversation, but generally, honestly, if you do something good in production, it may frame a conversation. We're certain that if you put something bad in production, not being technically, but like not what people expected, it will certainly frame a conversation. And in that way, it will be wanted.
and could we say then that one of the and I'm tying this a bit to the Dora metrics, but could we say that one of the measures of agility of a team is the the life cycle of a feature, in the sense that the time it takes to put a feature in production?
What's the Dora metric?
The Dora metrics are a set of four metrics that were developed by the DevOps report people. I will try to link it in the description of this episode. But basically, if I don't say any mistakes, they are how much time it takes to make to put a from a feature to go from idea to production, how many deployments there are per period, how many errors there are per deploy, and how long does it take on average to fix those defects? Those are the four main ones, if I recall correctly.
Main positive things are pretty good if you think about it. Main negative things are stupidly complicated to do. It's a good set, but it's a pity to make work. It covers a lot of interesting things. Like I feel it's very complicated, but the lead time it's indeed how fast are we getting to production. To answer that, I think it's at least I would say it's a bad metric, but it's a better one than most I've seen.
Mhm.
In a world where every metric is bad in a way, like it's misrepresenting reality, yeah, I think that I put my, if I have to put my heritage money, which doesn't exist, on two teams, and if you tell me one is delivering every 3 days and the other every 3 months, I think I'll put my money on the 3 days delivery, even not knowing if they are good or bad.
Mm,
They have the tools to get better faster than the 3 months. They win.
mm.
Like in your own other factor, I put more money in them, yeah, inevitably. But
And
even that may
Three
not be in the
days,
hand of the team itself. Okay.
3 days behind the feature flag is still good enough. Like, so just a stakeholder can test and see what's to change.
And same thing, maybe you are in a bank and the team cannot decide to go to production, but then okay, then the team puts their own metrics to staging because that's after that it's outside of their own capability to act, and so it becomes a meaningless metric because it's a metric from the institution. And then you play the game and you say, okay, I may not be able to go to the final customer because my institution preclude that. Then okay, my proxy to customer is my I don't know QA per department, and my own game is that they have something every 3 days. Whether they decide to deploy it next year, well, that's out of my hands.
how long would you say the typical lead time of a feature you would code, uh, quote unquote, historically is? Like, how long typically does it take for one of your features to go from it's a ticket to it's in production?
How long do I tell the project manager it's gonna take, or how long do I actually take counting the feedback? And
I, I assume you tell the project manager it's gonna take a year, and then you do it in less. So I'm more interested in the second one.
it's just like there's so much variety there that I really don't know. I don't believe in that. I'm not, it's just like I haven't experienced enough to put a name to that.
Okay.
I would think it's a loaded question. Also, that seeing your direction, maybe you need to rename this a senior dev, a smart one, and I, because I like the part about you saying the time I would say to my project manager or the other one. So maybe we need a rebranding. That's smart. No, so it's a loaded question to be honest, because it's so much dependent on the environment. It's very difficult. But when I am nowadays, which is in an environment where the institution is not putting any constant of my work, any constant that I have is the one I put myself or the team put itself together, the more it goes, the more I can tell you that anything above 3 days becomes suspicious.
Mhm.
Not suspicious in the meaning that no failure should ever take more than 3 days. That's stupid. A lot of things much more complicated than that. It's more that I tend to find a way to give to make the first 1/10 of that feature go to production, and that 1/10 of a day feature is actually finished. Which means I manage to get them to production, whatever the way. It's not always doable. It's easier in small team. It's easier in greenfield, and it's also easier in senior teams where we feel a lot about, hey, you know what, we can cut that. Cutting feature in piece is, according to me, the most complicated task for a developer to learn. It takes a huge amount of time to realize I can cut that, I can just do that part, I can hide it under a feature toggle, I can take the screen and put it aside from the other. You know what? I can review and change an app bar design even if the rest of the application design is not changed. Why? Because there is no law against that, except your designer is becoming mad, but that's okay. We're going to, as long as it's discussed together, we're going to live. So, again, outside of constant, the fact is that most of us doesn't operate outside of constant. But I still think that even in the bank, you could play that game with your test environment. You could play the game with getting that one done of a failure after 3 days. There is nothing that prevents you to do that, and it still will be a win. It will be a huge win compared to what it could be, but it will be a win. The fact is, no one told me that when I started programming.
And I'm not
No one told
sure,
me about, you know what? Sorry.
that every project manager just would recognize that something between a feature toggle is actually having the feature done. But as you said, it's all about constraints. I suggest. Yeah,
In your example, then it's about doing some education around us.
yeah.
I mean, I'm working with stakeholders which are generally not technical. Part of my job is to help them being in a situation where I can help them better. So it's giving them the tools, saying, yeah, it's doable. Don't think if they're in me it's impossible. It's not. So let's discuss together and find it out. But again, we're back to, yeah, it's easier in my environment when you have two super senior developers with a product manager. Everything goes quite smoothly, like
Mm.
we do mostly what's asked, and we have a product side that expect us to do what they ask us, but not exactly the way they ask us. And sometimes they expect us to do things that they didn't ask.
Yeah.
That's a lot of freedom, which is found generally by delivering. Back to the, if you're delivering often, you generally start to getting eyes to do some stuff.
Cool. Um, One last question, I think, because we're getting close to not the end of the subject, which is infinite, but close to getting a rounded idea of the subject. How often have you? And this is a question I like to ask because I find it funny. Have you actually done Scrum? Because I feel like everyone has done Scrum-ish. Everyone has done stand-ups. Everyone has done I don't know, retrospectives or 2 week sprints, etc., etc. But no one has actually done Scrum by the book. And if you have done it, what did you think of it?
No, I haven't done Scrum by the book.
No. Like I've been in companies where we're told to do that. So, but well, in a way, it's stupid. I'm sorry to say, like it's rigid, which is a fun thing for a methodology that's called itself agile.
Hmm.
Now again, it's very understandable by stakeholders in big companies. So it's a useful point of entry. That I get. They are
Hmm.
work they can recognize, they are easy with that because in a way you take a very clear and rigid process called waterfall, you replace it with a also clear and rigid process, and in a way it's reassuring. But no, no, we don't. And I'm sorry to say, but if you start looking at Scrum, a lot of things are gone and stupid. When you think about it, it doesn't make a
Hmm.
lot of sense. Who's printing all the days? Like, I mean, that's what you have to, even the words are bad. It's, yeah. No, I've never, not only I never done it, I've never seen it applied,
Okay.
as far as I know.
Yeah, it matches with what I have experienced. Although you said who is sprinting every day, all companies I've been in say they are sprinting. The sprint is pervasive to talk about development cycles. Um,
Can I can
yes,
I
George.
can I jump back on another question? Back question and another answer. Where did you say what were the essentials to be agile? I was just
Mhm.
thinking about Martin's answer and everything. It's just like trust. Like, it's just that I see that trust in the end is what maybe gives empowers the teams to be autonomous and just less rigid, and that's maybe yeah,
Mm.
that's an essential.
Also, retrospective are meaningless if people are not at ease with putting the hard question. And
Yeah.
honestly, go to a retrospective in a big company, you're in for a good display of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, which is very smart out of the people doing that because the company will not accept anything. Oh, different. So, like, it's a very reasonable attitude. But yeah, yeah, indeed, if you cannot say things that are going well, things that are not, and if you cannot rely on your colleague, yeah.
Yeah,
When you're now with a big plan, at least you're following something.
yeah, I agree wholeheartedly as well that uh, trust is probably the biggest thing, right? Because the rest needs to flow from that. If you have to change, you have to trust that the changes will be made. If you have to speak up, you have to trust that you will be heard, etc., etc.
Again, imagine telling a room of 50 middle managers out of the same imaginary financial institution in Belgium. What are you doing to get the trust of your teams?
Mhm.
Because that's what people do in your job. I don't care if you are an boss. You're not getting anything by being a boss. Having lived in my situation with a lot of senior developers, which means people that can find another job much faster than you can find one out of 10, that push you in a very humility side as a manager, because it's like, if I don't do it well for that person, they're just going to replace me and the company behind me with another one, like next week. Because they
Mhm.
can.
I, I agree. I agree with that.
Do they need replacing? Could the company just do without them?
You're ready to be a manager also. Very good.
At some point, there are diminishing returns on people leaving. Uh, one last for the road. What would you recommend on to someone that is getting interested in agility and in this whole topic? Where would you recommend them to start? Because I feel like the manifesto is super vague, and at least to me, when I discovered it, was general to the point of meaninglessness for me with the knowledge I had at that time. Where would you recommend someone to start this journey?
I totally recognize myself in the it's meaningless because it's just difficult to apply. It shows that it means something retrospectively after having experienced some teams.
Hmm.
Otherwise, to start with agility, I would start with yoga, and just that's the basic. And and I sincerely don't know. Just yeah, as I said, I feel like the weekly retrospectives where you just think about just how to work better as a team is would be the tiny thing. And just with only three columns and tickets, so just like what do you do well, what should we repeat, and what do we want to talk about, and that's a good start.
I know
Gotcha.
what about the Agile Manifesto? It's not operational. It's not meant to be. It's ideological. It's a vision. And I
Mhm.
think that's okay, but I agree that you cannot do anything in a team with that in hand. That program doesn't get itself to be operational easily. And in a way, the day it becomes operational, it becomes meaningless because then it becomes fun. That's the whole point, but it's the whole issue of it in a way that if you put it in a very nice canvas, then suddenly it lost 90% of it. About the actual question, where to start, I agree with George. Retrospective are good. Whatever way you do it. If you have no idea, go to Retromat. It's super nice. You have a lot of idea of retrospective. Shuffle them until you find one that you like with your team. And the other, I think it's really one of the good ways to say is that what is your general lead time? How can we get that to a couple of days? Because this
Yeah.
question forced to open a lot of interesting stuff, 80% of them institutional and 20% of them technical.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. It's a very revealing question. How much seems like, what is your visual release time? 3 months. Why? And then you
Mhm.
get to an actual interesting discussion. Why cannot be, let's release in 3 days? No, why? Why is it impossible? That's a good way to start. But generally, it's unpack a lot of stuff. I agree with George, it's complicated to get a single point to get
Yeah.
started.
Sure.
I
I see
have
that.
another resource that's just that it reminded me that Martin actually shared with me a few months ago. It's Modern Agile, the website, which is
Okay.
just nothing to do with the manifesto, but it's amazing for modern software developers.
But its vision in
It's a good.
it's ideological also. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's sticker. But like when you say make safety a prerequisite, what do I do for that? Well, a lot of things from mental health to ergonomic chairs, so it's huge.
Mm.
And maybe some gold standard somewhere in the middle. I don't know.
Yeah. I see. I think the what I can take away from the whole discussion basically is what Marta has said a couple of times, that at the end of the day, agile is more ideological slash a state of being in the team more than a set of practices, right? And modern agile goes towards that as well. Um, okay, I think we can end the podcast here. I'm super happy of everything I've learned from you guys today. Thank you so much for making time for this.